Hey guys, Dustin here with the Dustin LeBleu CEO podcast, and as always, I'm joined by my main man, Austin Ray.
What's going on, guys? So you know what? Let's just redirect people real quick. So if you don't exactly know who Dustin is, you know, the story behind where he comes from, the businesses that he owns and whatnot, go ahead and take a look at our first podcast, which is going to be the one directly before this one, as this is episode 2. So, to add on to that as well, make sure that if you guys like this podcast or the previous one, make sure that you like it. Go ahead and share it, be it on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Facebook, wherever you see it. Go ahead and share it. Let your friends know about it. Hit that follow button as well. It's always great to have new followers.
Just get it out there because we don't make money from this. We're just doing this to help people out and get the story out there, and then just talk to you about what works for us, really. Yeah. So please share.
100%. Not for money. So on today's topic, we actually have about 3 different points. Now, when we were doing our previous short videos on YouTube, we had talked about this before, and it ended up being one of the main points that we really tried to stress to people. And I feel like it's probably the biggest, what do you want to call it? Like the biggest factor that sets people back from entrepreneurship or actually growing a business or actually taking that leap of faith forward.
Well, I think it's life in general, really. I mean, If you look at really anything that people do, it's usually, they don't do it because of fear. Right? They're scared to fail, or, just they're angry at something or whatever the case may be. But it's typically, I find, failure. People are, born to be scared to, have somebody else tell them, oh, they didn't do this or they didn't do that. And in reality, really failing is an education. That's how you learn. That's how you become better at business or become better at being a husband or being a father or whatever the case may be. That's how you learn. I mean, I was lucky enough to be born where I don't really feel fear in like business and things like that. It doesn't really bother me. So I have a little bit of an advantage there. But however, I think that people can learn from that and not be so scared of failing.
Yeah. And man, I'll be honest with you guys. Whereas Dustin doesn't have that, that feeling of fear. When I first started working for you and with you, I was the polar opposite. I 100% was scared to do anything for the fact that I was wary of what the repercussions would be if I failed. I never wanted to take that extra initiative and that step forward because I was always scared that I would mess up.
So let me ask you this: what would you think would happen? Let's say if we do a lot of advertising, right, for the businesses. So if you were to make an ad and you were scared, like what would you think would happen? Like what were you so scared of? Like what set you back?
My immediate thought back then was, I'm going to disappoint, I'm going to disappoint you, or I will disappoint, like Gabe, because obviously Gabe, helps with the social media a ton. And then along with that disappointment, it was going to set in that, okay, well, maybe my work's not that great. Am I sliding down that totem pole on hierarchy? Am I suddenly becoming, lesser because somebody else's work looks better than mine? And I'm a super competitive person. So I never wanted to fail in fear that I wouldn't be as good as somebody else was. And I always wanted to be on top.
So what changed that for you? So working around me, what changed that process for you?
Really, it was the fact that, I started to catch on to what you did personally in your businesses. So anytime there was any sort of, block in the road, anytime there was any sort of failure, be it a product or anything for that matter, you know what? You looked at it, you said, oh, cool. And you immediately turned around. You basically re-envisioned it. You ended up making it better, and then it 100% succeeded. It may not have happened overnight, but it ended up being better. You didn't hesitate. And the lack of hesitation in you were able to move ahead faster. And in the time it would take me to make a decision, you would already, for instance, you could have failed once, turned it around, made your decision to move forward. And I was still sitting here determining what I was going to do because I was too fearful of failing.
Yeah, and that's the thing here, guys. Like most of the people that I run into, that is their biggest obstacle. They're scared to really do anything. I've met so many people in life that have been in business, and even some friends of mine, they would have businesses going on, and I'd be like, look, here's some suggestions. Here's some things that you should try. They would be like, yeah, I'll do this. But ultimately, they would never try it because they were so scared that would make them fail. And they were so scared in their minds to be like, oh, I'm a failure. But ultimately, like I said, it's just education. You've got to be able to take that leap and then just move on extremely fast. And by moving on extremely fast, I'm not saying, don't do research, but whenever I get into something, let's say like movies, right? I didn't know shit about movies. Okay, but what did I do? I went out there and I learned myself. Did I fail? Yes, I failed. But right now, 3 years later, I'm so much more versed in movies because I figured out my own way to do things. Not Hollywood's way, not other people's way. I figured out my own way, and that's how things are invented.
Yeah, guys, 3 years ago, we got a Black Magic Ursa, and Dustin and I stayed after work one day, and we sat it up. And keep in mind, we didn't put a cine lens on this thing. We stuck a lens, one of the base lenses from what was it, a Canon T3i. So everyone that knows photography knows this lens is like, like the Dollar General version of lenses.
Right.
And guys, we started there 3 years ago, filming a short little video one day after work. That was, I'm sure we could probably find this thing.
Oh, I think it's on YouTube.
God,
actually.
Dude, it was awful. Looking back at it, but at that time we thought we were the next big thing. But 3 years later, and that for a lot of people, especially in movies, that is an unbelievably short amount of time.
Oh, it's extremely short.
And the difference between then and now,
I
don't even think it's comparable.
Yeah, but see, I think the thing that I took from what you just said, though, like you said, we thought that it was the best ever at the time. And I think that's a mentality. And in fact, I know that's a mentality that you have to have. So like when I come up with something, like let's say movies, right? We're talking about that. We thought it was the best ever because I know the end vision is going to be great. It may take a few tries. It may take 100 tries. But at the end of the day, I know eventually it's going to be great. And I think that's where a lot of people are failing. I know that's where a lot of people are actually failing because they're just so scared of trying that and saying, hey, I'm going to be great at this eventually. Even though, we looked at it both and we said, hey, this video is awesome. It's not awesome, but what we're making now is awesome, and it's just going to get more awesome. I hate to use the word awesome so much, but
no, dude, it's good. And, I think walking with your head in the right place and looking at it in a successful way, even though it is a failure, there is like you said, it ties back into the beginning because even though it's a failure, it is a success purely because it's a learning experience, and whatever you did wrong, you will do better in the future.
Yeah.
And that's what, I know that kind of ties back into the whole thing, but, it's just something I feel like a lot of, what do you want to call them? Like entrepreneurs. That's what they see. They see an end goal, but they're too scared to start. And then the whole time, all they do is just sit there and complain about how do I start? Why can't I start? How's everyone else doing it? And why can they do it? Well, it's because they've pretty much set aside the fact that they're scared.
Exactly. Like I haven't actually heard the term entrepreneur or whatever you just said, but I think that's a lot of it, man. Like they. One thing that kind of bugs me sometimes is people will ask, how do I do this? How do I open a business? And that's the point of this podcast. Quite frankly, I don't know shit about a podcast, really. You know what I mean? Like the program we're using, I use to make beats on. Like that's all I really knew about it. So, it's just the fact that they're asking all these questions. They're so worried about what they're going to do to start this business. Ultimately, that's really just fear. They're scared. Yeah. Like we have Google. You can type shit in and learn a lot from Google. I mean, I started business before the internet was really that prevalent and just learned it by trying things, educating myself.
And one thing that you taught me was YouTube University. I mean, you know what? You don't need, you don't actually have to go to a college or something to learn this stuff. And I'm not saying, I'm not discrediting college to each their own, but I'm simply saying that one thing Dustin drilled into my mind was if you want to learn something, the odds are it's already a tutorial on YouTube. And that's how I learned like a lot of things that I do, especially with social media marketing. Now we're not going to get into we're not getting into that now.
Yeah.
But a lot of things about that, you and Gabe were like, dude, go watch YouTube videos. I'm like, deal.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. You actually have to try to, like if you say you can't find information, you have to try really hard to not find information. There's information everywhere.
Yeah.
So if you're just waiting on this one person's answer, that's really not good because, You know, it's not hard to find information these days. It's really not that hard.
No.
You just have to open your eyes and take the.
Yeah, it's right. You know what? I'm trying to refrain from using a lot of expletives here, but it's literally right. It's right in front of you. And people that say it's not there, they're using excuses.
Yes.
In today's time, with the plethora of media in front of you, even if you had to go back and read a textbook or something, I'm not saying a college textbook, any kind of information that you want can be found in a bookstore, can be found on Google, online, whatever. It's there in front of you. So there's no reason to fear your journey because you have the tools to learn. The only reason that you're not moving forward is because you have an excuse for not trying.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Excuses it's really like what everybody wants to say why they can't do something, but they never want to, say why they can do something. Well, you have every reason in the world to say why you can do something. Obviously, if you look at my story from the first podcast, there's no really excuses. There just isn't. You got to put yourself in a state of mind to where you believe everything that you do can ultimately be great. And, like I've said before, like impossible, there is no impossible. You got to get rid of that. Like everything was impossible before it happened, right?
Exactly.
Like we're talking into little cell phones now. I can talk from a guy from, here in the United States to China on this little box. Think about it. 70 years ago, it's like nobody would have. It's just crazy.
You guys get ready because that's going to be a quote. That's definitely going to be a motivational image right there. So let's look at point 2 that we have wrote down, which is you need to visualize what you want to do, even if others say that it's impossible.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Others say it's impossible because they have a fear of moving forward and they have a fear of doing it because it looks hard. It looks difficult and everybody wants the easy way out. Don't listen to them. Again, I want to say something else, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, we're trying to stay away from the F-bomb. I talked to Austin earlier. We're like, let's not say the F-bomb so much.
Exactly. No, I want to be able to broaden this to all audiences, even if it's younger people that are just now listening. So visualize what you can and want to do. So figure out what your strengths are. And not only figure out what your strengths are, but Dustin, you're like the pinnacle for doing this, which is surround yourself with people that have strengths where you have weaknesses and develop from there. So
yeah, you want to, go into the part of impossible, right? So you have to kind of like bring out your inner child a little bit, your inner child, and like kind of imagine what you think you can do. And then really keep that in the back of your head the whole time. Like, that's the end goal. And then, like you said, surround yourself with good people. Like for me, like I'm good at coming up with ideas. I feel like that's where I thrive. I'm good at coming up with these, strange ideas to most people, but where I'm not real good is, book work and, reading and things like that. So I try to hire people that are great in that area, or they can be great. I see something in them that can be really good. So it fills those weaknesses around me that can ultimately make your business a success. And that's what we've done. And I've learned that over time, and I'm still learning it today, actually.
Yeah. And dude, speaking of those ideas, at the main office, man, you've got a whole wall of sticky notes. That's what it is. Every time you have an idea, you sticky note it and put it up there. Just a little tidbit there for some people, like, hey, if you have an idea, write it down.
And I would bet, actually, to that sticky note thing, I would bet if I took the audience and brought them into my office, they would look at the wall and they would go, this guy is crazy.
There's some stuff on there that I saw that I, honest to God, never even knew that you had some sort of interest in.
Yeah.
I was like, I would never have thought Dustin LeBleu had any interest. I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, did I see, no, I don't want to run.
Yeah, let's not put them out there yet, but I mean,
anyway, you guys get the point. You know what? It's the fact that whatever it is, if you're going to visualize it, let's take this as step 1. Write it down. Always have either, whether it be journaled, whether it be a sticky note, just keep a log of it because it's always beneficial to have something wrote down.
Yeah, I mean, writing stuff down is a good thing. It's good to remember. It's something that I haven't done forever. To be quite honest, I started doing this, probably about a year ago. I started writing more things down, pinning it up on the wall, just so I remember the ideas because I have a lot of different ideas. So I kind of forget sometimes where I was going with it. So I want to, if I want to rehash that idea, I have it on the wall and I have a time that when I can get to it, I can get to it. Right now, I need to focus on a few things because the fact is you can't have too many things going. And I'm the world's worst at that, actually. But I'm trying to train my brain to not do so much at once. That way I can focus on, 3 or 4 or 5 businesses, which it seems like a lot, but it's not to me, Does that make sense?
Yeah. And, like even with like writing stuff down too, just in, like your regular workflow even, I know when I first started, I was working under Chase, and he told me first thing, he's like, dude, always write down everything that you do. And I never did. And then I caught myself slipping. Caught myself slipping on stuff like, oh shit, I forgot, or oh crap, I forgot this, or oh, I forgot to do this or this or this, and in the end, this it transcends into entrepreneurship, because in your journey you don't want to skip any of the important steps. You don't want to forget to do anything that's certainly critical to the developmental stage of your business or your journey. So it's always good to just take notes on absolutely everything, even if it seems minute. Take the notes over it, learn from it.
And I'll always be looking for new information. Like, in my spare time, like I don't like to watch TV and things like that. I will literally watch a YouTube video on how to build a car or whatever. I'm just making up stuff now, but just something. I'm always trying to absorb some type of information that I feel could be usable, not only now, but maybe later on in a vision that I might have. And when I'm saying vision, I'm not saying I have this crazy ability to do something. I'm just saying that I'm not scared to visualize something that to most people would be impossible, when I know it's not impossible if I take the proper measures and put in the effort in. And that kind of goes into our last point. Like the third point is figuring things out. You don't have to have a diagram of how to do things. You actually can create the diagram and then give it to other people of how to do things.
Exactly. Which is honestly, that is this podcast. Yes. Ironically enough, that is what this podcast is. Now, in one of our old videos, we actually had basically a dedicated video over business plans. Now, I know for one, you're not a person that likes to be have a super detailed laid out business plan that's cookie cutter, because everything that you do is going to be different. And that's the thing is like, you need to figure out what's going to work in that certain circumstance. And I feel like a lot of people want to take one of these cookie cutter ideas of how a business should be done, or figuring out, where am I going to start and whatever. And nothing is ever going to be the same. Like no matter what you do, it is always going to be different. So you have to prove to yourself and prove to the people around you that your ideas are going to work, which ties back into the failure. What you do in the beginning may fail, but it doesn't matter, because you can recoup, you can rebuild, and then you're figuring it out. So there's your plan, what works for you.
Exactly. So, like you said, with the business plans, most banks will want a business plan. Where's this going to go? Well, I mean, honestly, that's just bullshit, because if I get into a business, well, let's say in the nutrition business, right? Mm-hmm. So my vision is like to create this great nutrition company, this and that. But at the beginning, I didn't know anything really about it besides just selling products, on the shelf. So I had to learn everything myself and create that whole space that worked for me, right? Mm-hmm. So my business plan, if I was to write that at the beginning, would be nowhere near where it is today, because the fact is I didn't really know exactly what, processes it would take to get there. I knew the end result would be amazing, but, I put a little bit of myself into it. So like in the nutrition business, I use scary films and things like that to mold my, marketing. But I knew I could create great products. It's just, how do I get those out to the people? So that is change, and you're always evolving, and you're always evolving that business plan. So a business plan should always kind of be evolving. And if you're an entrepreneur and you have the entrepreneur mindset, you're always going to be evolving those ideas. So to have a business plan like a cookie cutter or whatever you were just saying, it doesn't work unless, and that's the problem with businesses. Everybody has these, like all these rules and shit. Well, really there isn't really rules. Like you can't have rules, because those are boundaries to what you could potentially do, because you have to have everything out on the table, man, including inventing new shit.
Yeah, it's boundaries for growth. And man, you literally had my next point there, which is the way that everything evolves, the evolution of marketing, the evolution of the way businesses ran. I mean, if you're to look back 10 years ago, people did not hardly use social media for marketing. It really only developed, I'd say, within three to five.
I'd say the last 5 years has really been developing.
Yeah. And that's the point, is like, if you try to use a cookie cutter scheme, the odds are your competition that is just basically enveloping themselves with the process and creating their own, they're going to outdo you. They're going to surpass you. And it's because they are developing themselves and evolving along with the times, whereas you're stuck back in an old school mindset. I mean, you'll see people that try to open a business here locally and they use print ads. Like, are you serious? I mean, yes, print ads can work in certain aspects, but then you have their opposing company down the road who's just absolutely killing it. And it's because they run social media ads, or even though it is a little bit archaic, they take the extra leap and they go for radio ads. But then again, more people would rather listen and actually see it on social media or over the air than pick up a newspaper, because it's outdated.
And like the advertising, we'll get into a real good podcast about advertising and what may work for a local business or what may work. And these are all things that I think would work. I've had local businesses. I have international businesses. That's, so I'm versed in that area. I can tell you mistakes and things not to do and things that have worked for myself. But, like you said about, advertising and stuff. And like, I kind of look, I told you the other day, I've been looking into like Richard Branson. This guy's been doing business for, I'm wanting to say like 50 years, right? With, Virgin and stuff. And he's evolved. He could easily still be looking at like print and things like that. But this guy is like doing social media. Like he's doing things, he understands evolving with the times, and you have to evolve your business with the times, and that's why you can't put limitations on the business or on your ideas.
Exactly. And kind of on point 3 as well, where we're saying prove it and figure it out, I want to point out that figuring it out doesn't just stand for your ideas and your business in the plan that you need to make yourself, but you need to figure yourself out. I think that like kind of like a self-revelation of who you are, and do you have what it takes, and is this what you really want to do? You need to dig down and discover who in the hell you are, and do you actually want to be in this direction? Does this fit you? Is this your mentality? Does this fit your drive? Does this fit your creative desires in whatever direction you're going? Because if you get involved with something that you don't have a passion for, ultimately in the end, you may not make it to the end. And if you do, you're not going to have the satisfaction of being there. You're still going to see it. And so many people do this.
Well, and this is the thing that I always get on, to people when they come to me. It's like, okay, when I do stuff now, like I have some kind of passion for it. Like right now I have a passion for doing a podcast because I want to help people. Like, me, I love to help people. If I can help somebody, I just love it. It makes me feel good. It just makes me feel like I'm living. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It makes me happy. And ultimately we all want happiness, right?
Exactly.
That's something we all want, whether it be in marriage. Like I'm a family guy. I love my wife. I love my kids, but I also love business. It's like my pastime. It's like what I love to do. It's like what baseball used to be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, you hit on a point there. You've got to have a passion, because it's so extremely hard to run a successful business because of the time and effort and things that you have to think about, and the downfalls and the great things. Like you have to have passion, or you just simply wouldn't do it. And I heard Steve Jobs has a great quote about this. Like, if you don't love it, you'll just go crazy. I don't know what the exact quote was, but it was something along those lines. Like you would absolutely go crazy if you didn't love what you were doing. And ultimately in life, we want to love what we're doing, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you want to love what you're doing. If you don't love what you're doing, you're just not going to be happy, and it's just going to be very hard to build something successful.
Yeah. And, it pretty much goes back to proving it, because if you are happy with what you do, or you find something that you're happy doing, so you've pretty much discovered, the outlet in which fits you best. Okay. So you're starting to figure out who you are. Say it's different than the current trend that's out there, so say it's different than a current product that somebody has. And here you have fear of going forward because it's something that you enjoy. Well, you're going to start thinking, if I enjoy it, do other people enjoy it? Well, you know what? Here's the proving grounds. Here's where the real journey of entrepreneurship begins, because your job now is to prove to people that they want it. Your job is to make them realize, hey, I actually need this in my life, or hey, this is something that I need to have. That I think is a trait, that's a necessity, almost like the point of being able to make somebody want to buy something, not necessarily even buying, but implant a realization upon people that your service or whatever you are providing is essential to their daily life.
Yeah, and that's what creating is about. Like, and that's what makes me feel really good. Like if I make something that ultimately people love, I'm like, man, this is great. But that's another thing too to bring up is like the past. You can't live in the past. Like if you listen to the first podcast of mine, I've done a very good job of eliminating the past almost. Like I don't even like to talk about it much because I'm more about going forward. And that goes into creating something that people would use in the future. How can you create something? Because you just can't live in the past. I mean, the past is the past. You've got to create the best mindset and be in the best state that you can be in right now and moving forward.
I mean, dude,
look 20 years into the future.
You guys, I mean, I say you guys, I'm involved with it too, but we pretty much projected the change in the supplement game.
Oh, we nailed it 100%.
I mean, that happened how many years ago? I mean,
that was about 3 years ago. We called that 3 years ago. And that wasn't because I'm a psychic or nothing like that. It was just because, honestly, just gut feeling and just feeling like that's what's going to happen and having passion for it.
And the variables and the outliers and the statistics were already there. Like if you were to make a graph, you could already see that this trend, though it was very light at the time, it was already visibly going for this certain area. It was starting to, go down. And you don't want to be on that sinking ship. And you know what? In the last 3 years, dude, we saw a lot of brands go under, or a lot of brands exchange hands and sell out to big corporations or, big shareholders or investors. And at this point, you know what? Look who came out on top. You know what? It speaks a lot for brands such as, for example, Insane Labs.
Well, and that's one thing that people, back then, they realize it now. They'll look at us differently because they see, holy shit, they saw something. But what they don't realize is they didn't see anything. Mm-hmm. They actually had blinders on because they were so used to what was easy for them. They didn't want to have any change. And ultimately in life, we were just talking about this. Life is change, man. You're going to change. Mm-hmm. As we grow older, we're going to change. And you've got to be able to embrace the change. You have to be able to embrace it and be better for it, right? Yeah. You can't just sit there and be like, well, it used to be like this. Because look, if you're going to live like that and you're going to be like that, well, guess what? You're probably going to be broke. You're going to be unhappy and you're going to feel like shit.
Exactly. And one thing that always blows my mind is when people will throw this one at me. They'll be like, well, people never change. I sometimes have no idea how to respond to it because it's almost an idiotic statement, because if people never change, things would always 100% remain the same. And that can be said across all the boards, whether it be in a business environment or a marketing environment, whatever things. If people didn't change, then times wouldn't change. And times are ever evolving. And, what's one thing that's constant? It's the people that's in there, which means they're changing too. They are the reason the times are changing. And that's, that can even be said in life, or,
it can be said in life. Yeah, it can be.
Whether it's with your significant other, whether, it's just with family in general, man. And I know, like I said, we were having a conversation just a few minutes ago. And you know what, irregardless of whether you're changing, it's always in a positive light. Make sure to always remain positive in your changes and always look back at it. Look back and make sure that what you've changed to is positive, and keep conveying that, and don't let people shoot you down for it.
And this is what's going to be different about our podcast versus a lot of podcasts is you're going to notice, I'll have a top 3 thing I want to go over or whatever. And it's going to go off into other stuff, but that's the way every day works around here. And that's okay, man. Like, that's okay. Like, you have to embrace what you're good at. And then you have to, see the change. It's okay. Like, we're going to talk about life, and it's not going to all be about business, because ultimately, if you go home and you're just miserable, it's going to affect your business life. We want you to be, we want you to be happy. We want you to, like I said earlier, I live for my kids, my wife, and I just love business. It's my pastime, and I love helping people. Yeah. I just love doing that. I love watching somebody go from nothing to something.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
And, I think if you, if you guys are to take anything away from this podcast, I think if your current situation is riddled with unhappiness or doubt, first, just stop and reevaluate. Reevaluate your direction. Reevaluate the way that you visualized everything and the plan that you've laid out for yourself, and really go back and think about it all. Think about who you are as a person. Is this something that you're going to enjoy? Think about the path that you're taking. What could you do? What could you do better?
And first, like we said at the beginning, you've got to eliminate fear and you've got to eliminate anger, because anger, that's something I really struggle with. I've told you before. Mm-hmm. If I look back in the past, it makes me angry. So I try not to look back in the past, you know, and then fear is just not something I really feel in this area.
Yeah.
You see, so like you got to eliminate those two things from your life, because you're not going to be able to succeed in a lot of things that you want. If you're just scared, you're never going to do shit. If you're angry, it's just not a good state to live in.
And you know what? I want to say eliminate all the negatives from your life, but then I'm going to immediately contradict myself in a later episode, because I actually feed off some negativity, because it makes me want to put my head down and work a hell of a lot harder. So although I'm going to contradict myself later on, eventually I'm going to do it. Try to eliminate the vast majority of negativity that's in your life, whether it be people that surround you, whatever it is. Just reevaluate it and think about it. Like, is this person or these people essential to what I'm doing and what I am building for the future? Again, this is great around Dustin, and he's pretty much a purveyor of it, and the fact that he surrounds himself with people that have strengths, where, you know, in an essence where he may have a weakness. So think about surrounding yourself with people such as that.
Well, here's the deal with really what you just said is, like, on social media, okay, I'll get hate all the time on social media. People saying this and that. And I'm not going to lie. Like, if I read something, I might go, man, like, I want to evaluate it. I want to say, okay, is there something I can change about what I'm doing? But then if I realize, okay, that person's just a negative person, nothing's ever going to make them happy, I'm going to move on extremely quickly from that. I'm not going to, like, harp on that at all. I'm going to move on, because ultimately I know what I'm doing is good, and I have great intentions, and I'm trying to help others along the whole road. So you can't stay in that. And a lot of people get in this whole social media bullshit, you know, because at the end of the day, if there wasn't social media and somebody came to you face to face and said some of the stuff that they said on social media, they get punched in the face, right? Yeah. Like, they wouldn't say that kind of stuff.
Dude, it's all internet warriors, man. It's all keyboard warriors. And in today's time,
you got to block that shit out.
You're going to get so many trolls today, especially on anything social media related. Like, don't even, like, take any, like, I don't even know how to say it, man. Just, like, don't spend your day doing that. Don't spend your day reveling over the comments that these people have made, because it's ultimately pointless. You can go back and look at people's histories on Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, and you're going to see it's nothing but troll posts. Like, trust me, I've ran the Twitter, I mean, like since day one. And when we started growing this thing, I'm speaking in specifics for Insane Labs, right? When we dove into the esports scene, oh my God, how many haters we got from that. Still to this day, I see them in specifics going towards another supplement company, firing their haters towards us. And it's just like, why do you guys waste your time for this? I'm not even going to sit here and look at it. Back then, yeah, every time Dustin walked in, I'd complain about it.
Well, they waste their time because it's easy. It's really easy to be in that negative state and being able to, like, think about it. If you're not doing something that makes you feel great, what are you going to do? You're going to go out and you're going to make other people feel like shit so you can make yourself feel better. Yep. And it's a really sad state to be in. And that's what we want to ultimately change, but people have to change out of themselves if they want to elevate their life, you know?
Exactly. But, I mean, dude,
I think we leave it there for now.
I do. I mean, you know what? I'm sitting here looking back at this sheet, man. You know, just keeping it real. We've pretty much we overshot a few of the points, which is great. I feel like there's definitely some sub episodes within this podcast that we can definitely, you know, make and talk a little bit more on. May do like a short weekly cast as well, something about 10 minutes long. But you know what? Just to remind you guys that if you have any questions regarding anything that we said, if you want to comment on it or anything like that, we're on several social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can even find us on YouTube as well. Just look at Dustin LeBleu CEO. You know what? If you're on YouTube, drop a comment. You can actually hit up the direct messages on there. Same thing can be said for Twitter, Instagram, and even Facebook. But if it's just a comment, whatever it may be, please feel free to ask. Dustin will definitely answer it. You know what? He sees everything. I take the notes over all the comments that are, you know, seen. Hell, dude, you see him too. It's not like you're not on those pages.
Yeah, I'm pretty. I'm pretty OCD on that stuff. But yeah, you know, if you have a question, let us know, and then, I mean, going forward, like, this is the way the podcast is going to kind of be. It's not going to be. We're not going to be, you know, your typical, hey, do this, and this works. Here's what we know. Here's what's worked for us. Boom.
Yeah, you know what? I get called politically correct sometimes, and. I got called a PC. I'm going to be honest. Dustin laughed at me. I was like, what is a PC? I was like, am I a computer? I didn't know what it was. But But anyway, don't forget,
Amazing
like,
compliment.
share, subscribe, follow us on absolutely everything, iTunes, SoundCloud, you name it, be there. This episode, I think, is pretty much wrapped up.
Episode 2's in the books. We appreciate it. Have a nice day, and let's rock on.
Yeah.
Let's rock on.
Kill it, guys. We'll catch you later.